All right, afternoon, everybody. Thanks for making time to be with us. You're all here certainly to hear Rowan share and give perspective on the men's Canada Basketball Olympic Training Camp roster invite list. Before we get there, though, I want to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the program of Canada Basketball, and the tipping point that we're at right now as we approach Paris, sending 3 teams, historic accomplishment for us, a senior men's team, a senior women's team, and a 3x3 team that is one of the best in the world as well. When we think about what we've really charted for ourselves, what we've held ourselves accountable to, it's 2 winning ambitions. One is most certainly to be the best in the world. We know when we compete internationally through FIBA competitions, Olympic competitions, age group competitions, we have the talent. We are investing in the resources to give ourselves a chance to be the best in the world. But also we get out of bed every day to be the best for Canada. And that's something I think that we choose to be. As a national sporting organization, as a sporting organization in this country, we know that winning is our objective, but being led by our values, being good for this country, recognizing that this sport in its participation and its fandom represents the mosaic of this country, that's a stewardship that we have. And as we navigate the competition waters of basketball, winning well and winning well for Canada is just as important as winning. We've really built our foundation over the last number of years on 4 Ps: purpose, properties, participation, and podiums. From a purpose perspective, we're asking ourselves tough questions all the time. We identified 78 recommendations in our Unified 2024 plan focused on improving equity, diversity, and inclusion, not just in our organization, but in the game across the country. And we are actively pursuing the completion of all of those actions. We are scorecarding against those actions. We are making investments in our women's program to match the investments that we make in our men's program. We are calling out gaps that we see in officiating and coaching and executive opportunities in the game, and working to balance the representation of Canada's diversity within the walls and halls of our own organization and the basketball ecosystem. That's what our purpose narrative is a part of. From a property standpoint, we recognized, really as an NSO for the longest time, we were primarily government funded. We needed event properties, broadcast properties, and more home soil opportunities to engage Canadian brands in funding the professional exercise that we're going through as an NSO to be the best in the world. Creating Global Jam, and Oren, you were right, we were pausing it this year in the Olympic year, but it'll be back in full bluster in 2025. That is a new home soil event property for us to engage brands, but also just as importantly, hosting qualifiers and events like Global Jam so our athletes and their families can cheer for them on home soil and brands can engage on home soil. Just prior to the last Olympics, we were 57% government funded. Prior to this Olympics, coming out of our most recent fiscal year, we're 26% government funded. Doesn't mean we had less funds overall. We've got a lot more funds than we used to have, but we've grown it through brand properties and brand associations. From a participation standpoint, I think one of the telling signs is since the last Olympics, there's been a 35% increase in registered member participation in basketball in this country. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Raptors effect. Certainly we're now, as we announce this roster, still living through the Vince Carter effect and the talent pipeline that we have. We want to initiate the Canada basketball effect to be the igniter of the next major growth of basketball participation in this country. And this summer, we believe we can be that instigator. Because we know a sport that is growing, participants, coaches, officials, opportunities to work in the sport is one that will make it healthy in the long run as well. And then finally, podiums. Ultimately, you're all going to judge us, the fans will judge us on whether we win. We get it, we're a sports organization, and that's really a dominant KPI, and it should be. Since the last Olympics, in 37 FIBA-sanctioned competitions, we've been in a medal game 88% of the time. We've won a medal 77% of the time. That's not 100% though. And our goal is to be 100%. Our goal is to be an organization that celebrates winning, because qualifying, being in, is frankly not the win that we're shooting for. This summer, we're in, but we're going to Paris to win. We're investing in these teams. We're investing in the way that they train. We're investing in their coaching so that we can give Canada the moments that they deserve. It's not lost on me, too, that this room is full of very passionate, often supportive, but always fair media that cover this game across the country. And far too few of you will be in Paris. Decisions that are out of your control, decisions that are out of our control. What I'm going to promise you is, because I believe we're going to have some moments that are going to have some stories worth telling in this country. We are resourcing around the way that we're going to support media storytelling, both on the ground here in Toronto and extra resources in Paris, so that you'll have the access that you need to tell the stories that you want to tell, the fair stories, the honest stories, and the stories about the moments. That's our promise to you. I wish we could all be there. We can't be, but we're sure as heck going to have the funnel to make sure that you've got the access that you need to tell the stories, and we appreciate that. The only thing I'm going to ask in return is that you tell the whole story. You're here today to hear about the men's training camp roster. We've got a 5th-ranked senior women's team going to the Olympics. We've got a world-leading 3x3 team, women's team, going to the Olympics. Tell the whole story this summer. We've got a lot of storylines to tell, and we're excited about it. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rowan Barrett, General Manager and EVP of our Men's High Performance Program, and thank you again for your support.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here as we get ready to kick off our summer towards Paris, the Paris 2024 Olympics. First, I want to just thank the Canada Basketball Board of Directors, our President and CEO, Michael Bartlett, on the podium, the COC, as well as our donors, really for believing in the system that we've been building over several years, believing in our athletes and believing in my vision of continuity and cohesion as the way forward for us to succeed in this quad. I also want to thank Glenn Grunwald for, I'm going to thank you too, Glenn, for hiring me on as general manager back in February of 2019. Well, it's been 5 years now. What can I say? We're now amongst the world's elite. And that happens with a lot of work from a lot of people. Jordy Fernandez is doing a phenomenal job for us. A tremendous staff in place, as well as within our walls at Canada Basketball. People working tirelessly, a staff that you often don't see. You just see phenomenal results that come from their work. So I want to thank them as well. But in the end, the dedication and commitment from the athletes, right, is really what's going to drive this, right? Without athletes, there's nothing really that you can do. And so I want to thank all the 33 players that committed in this quad, right? The 14 strictly from the summer core, mostly filled with NBA players, and then the 19 from mostly playing overseas that are committed to not only the winter, but also committed to the summer. Also players that were in that commitment. And it wasn't always easy, but they have helped us really change the culture of how we want to play basketball and what it means to play basketball for this country. And, I believe that in doing so, they've set an example for the players that will follow. I want to thank our alumni, as well. The alumni, they got a strong voice, and I hear it. Win or lose, I hear it, and it's good. But today I want to speak, on behalf of the alumni. I want to bring the voice of the alumni, and I want to speak specifically to our players at this moment. Okay, as an alumni myself, as a former Olympic team captain and Hall of Famer, I want to say that we recognize the commitment of these players. We recognize your sacrifice, your selflessness, the grit, the toughness, and that steely nerve that we showed, especially last summer. It is commendable. It's exemplary. And we are beaming with pride watching our countrymen go out there and give it all on the floor, for their country. You're impacting our lives. You're impacting our families. You're impacting many communities across this country. We want to touch people all over this country, and you are doing that. We want to remind you that you are standing on the shoulders of a select few who've walked this road that you are now on. And with that comes some expectation, right? We have an expectation that when you go out to play for Canada, that you will leave it all out on the floor and play with your heart, play with everything that you have for your country. And so as I put my hat back on, I believe that our program is in a strong place and we're growing. And I believe that this is the beginning. Why do I say the beginning? Well, the work that we've been doing over the past decade to build our system, to build our athletes, to build our programs, driving things with the coaching, and our organization's growth over that time has put us in a position now that I believe firmly that we have a player pool and pipeline that stocks us out to 2032 Olympics and beyond. This is the beginning for us, we believe. We are ready, and we will be taking on all comers. But in the end, I think our goals need to be very clear. For this summer, we are working towards climbing up to the top of that podium. We are going to this competition in Paris to win. That's our plan. That's what we're stocked to do. And as a result of that, we had to create the strongest possible roster that we could to get that job done. And, let's just be real here, right? In the beginning of the last NBA season, there were 125 international players of the 400 plus players in the NBA, okay? 64 of them were from Europe, right? They're coming. And the draft will be next week, and they'll be adding more, okay? We cannot simply stand pat. We cannot just simply try to keep pace. We need to be on the cutting edge of what's going on with player development, on the cutting edge with our coaching, right? With our funding, with our knowledge of this game, to give ourselves a chance to continually stand amongst the elite and chase podiums every competition that we go in. And so to do that, everyone understands that we created a kind of a continuity and cohesion plan, this quad. And it's been good. It's been good so far. That being said, evaluating ourselves coming out of the World Cup last year, we could see that there are still some areas that we need to grow, right? We're trying to get up to the top of the podium. It looks like two small steps. It is not. They are two large steps that you have to jump, up. And with these teams reloading all around the world, and looking at some specific areas that we felt we need to bolster and strengthen, we could not simply look within our core of athletes. We had to look within our whole entire player pool to give us what we believe we might need. That being said, we're going to have all our players in camp, and those that were on the team last year, we want to keep that strong core that's been successful for us. But in a few areas where we feel like we need to improve, we want to open up some competition there, and we want to see the growth of our players from last summer in the specific areas. There's been a charge to the coach also to help grow us in some of those areas that we think we need growth in, and to see how our players have grown in the last year in that area, and also bring in some other athletes that we believe also fit the profile for some of those things, and then let's kind of compete and have at it. And so with that, our athletes are committed. They're committed to playing for Canada. They're committed to their country. We at Canada Basketball are committed to them. However, both the players and Canada Basketball must always be committed to winning, right? This is about our country. It's larger than us. It's larger than our feelings, right? We must work towards winning. And to do that, we have to tweak here and there along the way as we evaluate and as we continue to grow, okay? And as a result of that, we're going to have to look at player personnel. And so I know that's what everybody here is here for. And so without much more ado, I'm going to share the athletes that will be in camp this summer. And so I'll start with Kyle Alexander, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Rowan Barrett Jr., Trey Bell Haynes, Kem Birch, O'Shea Brissett, Dylan Brooks, Lugens Dort, Zach Eddy, Melvin Edgem, Shea Gilgis Alexander, Mfiondu Kabengele, Trey Lyles, Jamal Murray, Andrew Nemhard, Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell, Phil Scrubb, Thomas Scrubb, and Andrew Wiggins. These players will all be at camp, and together with them will be Benedict Mathurin and Shaden Sharp as our young guys coming in to learn the culture. They will not be coming in to compete for positions. They're coming in to learn and to grow. We believe these are some strong athletes that potentially can do some great things down the line with Canada. They're chomping at the bit. They want to be here. We want them in. Our doors are open. And with that, I'll open it for questions. Michael.
Rowan, congratulations. It's a pretty good group you got here.
Thank you.
A couple of names from that summer core aren't included in camp. Kevin is one, and obviously Corey's the other one. I just wondered if you could speak to some of the thinking or reasoning behind either of those two choices.
Yeah, you know, I love both of these guys, and they've been with us for so many years, and they've given quite a lot to the country. I think their effort and their commitment are to be commended over the years. And look, I've known Corey since he was just above my knee, and I used to play with his father in the men's leagues. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of love here for him. And Kevin, I used to be on the court in the gym with him working when he was in high school. We love these guys. You know, at the same time, as I've shared from the top, we are putting together the strongest possible roster that we can put together in the areas that we believe we need in order to compete and be successful at the Olympics here in Paris.
I mean, is there any, like, just to not have them in camp? You know, Corey specifically, I know Kevin had a lot of injuries, but was there not thought to have them in camp and compete and see where
Absolutely. You're always thinking about that. You know, but I do think for us, we're focused right now on having the best possible roster that we can have. And I think it's really important that we focus on the players that have decided to give their time, sacrifice their time, some of them with late playoff runs, with not a ton of time to heal and get ready for the next season, and they're here and want to be here with their country. So we are going to focus on the athletes that are giving their time this summer.
You go back to 2022, when you named that original 14-man summer core. I think there are 7 guys who have a chance to play in 22, 23, and 24. 3 more who weren't named to the core are also in training camp who would fit that bill. Do you see that as, I know it's more than that, it's being in camp and all that, but do you see that as, you know, getting what you wanted out of that initial commitment?
Yeah, I think that the commitment was for us to obviously, one, change culturally who we wanted to be and where we wanted to go. And second, it was to help us be successful. And so I think ultimately, we're going to be judged on wins and losses. And so if we're going to kind of evaluate whether it was successful or not, I think, you know, starting with the medal last summer, we're coming off a year, the most successful year in our program in the last 86 years. And we started competing in the World Cup in 1950. And the first medal we've won, the first time we've reached the podium was in 2023. So I would say that our plan is working.
You mentioned the guys who are at the World Cup. By my count, there are 10 who played there last year who are in camp. Are all, barring injury, are all of them expected to be on this team, or is the competition more open than that?
You're going to get me in trouble with Jordy. You're going to get me in trouble with Jordy here.
Trying to get answers.
Yeah, no, all the players from last summer's team will be in camp. They'll all be there. And as I said, we're going to continue looking to grow what we're doing, and we're going to work to impact the areas that we feel there were some challenges. Because, look, we're going to play really good teams. These teams are going to reload. They're going to have their very, very best there, okay? And when you get into the deep areas of these competitions and the guts of these games, they have some challenges. They have some questions that you need to answer on the court. And so we're trying to build something that can give us the opportunity to answer all questions when we get into these games.
Well, it's obviously a good problem to have. How difficult would it be to have that conversation with somebody who's played over the last few years, helped you get here, played last year, potentially cutting one of those guys or a few of those guys for some of these new additions?
It's always hard. I mean, this is the part of the job I hate, right? Like, this is never the good part of the job, but it's a necessary part if you're going to be successful. I think when you look at the competition structure and how it's set up, it's very different than it was in the past, right? In the past, you had qualification for the World Cup in year 1, you had the World Cup in year 2, you had the qualification for the Olympics in year 3, and you had the Olympics in year 4. It's very different now. Starting in 2017, you have these windows of competition in November and February, right? And then June. And you cannot field the same team all the time. You just can't, right? NBA players are not available in November and February, right? And so no matter kind of what you do, you're going to have to create a larger group of players that all want to commit, and almost with the mindset of almost like a relay team, in track and field. Like, one person's going to carry the first baton, right? He's going to hand it off to somebody in the second. They're going to hand it off to the third. And then when you get to the anchor leg, you're going to hand it off and with the wind in their back, push them down the track to win the race for you. And I think all of our athletes that signed up this quad for this understood that. They understood, I don't have a guarantee in the end to be on the team, right? But so that conversation is always going to be difficult, though, because as a player, you want to play. You believe in yourself, you believe what you can do, and you want an opportunity. But, there's only 12 players in the end that are on the team.
Rowan, what were the holes in the roster that you addressed and walk us through the process of trying to fill them?
Yeah, great question. I think that we've been number 1 in the world in offense for the last 3 years, number 1 in the world at the World Cup. We can score the ball. I think defensively, however, right, we want to grow. We want to grow in that area. We're not the worst team there. We're a decent team there. But we believe in order to get to the, as you're trying to climb those last steps of that thing, we've got to get stronger. We've got to get stronger defensively. So we're looking really specifically at that area as we're adding players to the group.
Is there a specific area of defense that you the team maybe is coming up short or?
All areas. Yeah. Defense starts when they get the ball, right?
How does Zach at Eden fit into everything? Like, do you expect a team would clear him? 'Cause it's kind of rarer for incoming rookies to play internationally. What's your assessment of that?
Yeah, I don't know that it's rare for NBA players to play internationally during an Olympic year. But it'll be a challenge for him, right? I mean, but I think he wants to play. Not a challenge for him personally. He wants to play. And there's really not much we can do until he gets drafted, right? Once he gets drafted, then we'll immediately get on the horn that night. I'll be trying to find the team, whether they'll take our calls that night. There'll be a lot going on, but we'll be at it the second we know where he's drafted.
When you guys announced the summer court, Nick was the coach at the time, and he made a comment about basically if you commit now for the next 3 years, you're guaranteed a spot. Was that not the case, or is that not the case still, that if you commit to the showing up time and time again, that you are on this team for the Olympics?
Okay, as I shared earlier, we had 14 players commit at that time and 19 commit to the winter and the summer. There's only 12 players on a team.
Are they guaranteed a spot if they showed up?
There's only 12 players on a team, I think.
When do you
Yeah.
expect to get to your final 12?
A good question. I believe that as we leave Toronto to go to Las Vegas, we'll have a very clear understanding about where we're going. And then
Offer some extra guys to Europe, though, to find out how they do against France and the team that played over this one as well?
yeah, I think by the time we leave Las Vegas, on the 11th, we'll have a very good understanding of where we are, and then we'll have some alternates that are along with us to support the team. Yeah.
Well, the Andrews have both played for the program before. They weren't with the team last summer, obviously, and not playing for Jordy. How long do you think that it'll take them to kind of get caught up to speed and accustomed to what Jordy was doing?
It's a great question. I think that Andrew Nemhard, I think the challenge will be there for everyone that's coming in, right? It'll be the same. But I do think Andrew Nemhard as a point guard, many of the sets that we're running are some of the ones that you still see in the NBA, that he'll be familiar with not only playing but also guarding against. And so I think he'll be fine. Andrew Wiggins is a pro. Every time he's been within our walls, he's played tremendous basketball. I wouldn't think that this moment would be any different. A healthy, strong Andrew Wiggins is a very, very good player.
Rowan, you talked about the pipeline. You also talked about the kind of relay race concept. What have you learned during your time in this role about the best ways to keep guys happy? As not every guy is going to make a 12-man roster, but they're going to be wanted again in the future, in the winter core, in the summer core, whatever it might be. What have you learned about the keys to kind of keeping guys happy as they're not always making those teams?
Well, the first is tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. The players respect that, and they're very, very, very intelligent. They're very intelligent. You need to tell them the truth. Let me know what I'm working with, right? And then let me decide if I want to be a part of that, And so that's what we've done. We've been very honest, right? And, there are athletes here that have given a significant amount of time, and I think the focus is when I have my time, when it's my time and I'm playing, let me give everything that I have, right? Let me do my job here and push this team forward, when I have the opportunity. And, in my conversations with the players, for the most part, they want their country to win. They want their country to win. They're competitive, but they want their country to win.
Rowan, with 2 OQT winners in your pool, could whoever wins those have an impact on Canada's roster? Can you take it down to the 11th hour?
Yeah, I think that as we build our roster, I think that one of the things you have to do if you're ever going to win, and we understood this winning the World Championship in 2017, with our World Juniors. If you're going to win, and it's the case for every team that I've watched, for the most part, win in the men's, in the World Cup, and in the Olympics, going back the last 20 years, you have to be able to adapt, right? You can't play one way. You have to be able to change the way that you play, dependent on the team that you're going to play against. So to do that, you have to build a roster that has the type of flexibility in it that gives you the ability to adapt to whatever you see. So I think that our focus is going to be to create that type of roster, no matter who comes through the gates.
Last year you had Leonard Miller in camp. Did you consider him or any other young guys besides Mathurin, Sharp to come for the experience?
We're considering everyone all the time. Guys, we want them. Look, there's 26 players in the NBA. There's so many record numbers that are overseas. If I had my way, right, I'd have them all here, okay? But I don't know if I'd have a job after that. I mean, I think Bartlett would be kicking me out. I'd love to have all of them there. You'd have to make some difficult, very difficult choices. It's not easy. But I'd much rather have a conversation about, the players, the bevy of players that we have and the difficulty of not being able to invite than not having the players and wondering why they're not showing up. So, I'd much rather this conversation.
What were some of those conversations behind closed doors in regards to balancing out the cohesion and continuity versus trying to put together the strongest team? And you made a mention of putting feelings aside as well. Can you elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, I think that the first thing is really simple, is, guys, this is what we did really, really well, and this is what we didn't do very, very well. If we're going to go to the Olympics and try to win, do you think we're going to be able to stay the same and get that done? And the players are intelligent guys. They're competitive. They want to win. They understand that. And so that conversation, while sometimes uncomfortable, right, because it's going to impact people, it's a real conversation that you have to have if you're going to win, right? And so without getting into the details of what I speak to individual players about, that's the general gist, right? It's one our staff understands, one our players understand, that generally speaking, our players have been fine with.
What was the other part about you putting feelings aside?
Sorry?
What was the other part about putting feelings aside that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. Well, I'll speak for myself, right? the feelings when you're sitting there talking to somebody that you've known for 15 years or 20 years of their life, and you're going to tell them, hey man, this is what it's going to look like, is challenging, right? But, you have to kind of get past your feelings in that moment to do what you must do for your country to have its chance to succeed.
Are you concerned at all about setting a precedent where a guy can not necessarily make a long-term commitment and come in an Olympic year? And how do you avoid that kind of precedent being set?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think the bottom line is perform, right? Our team has to perform, right? And as we evaluate our team, that will tell us what we're doing moving forward, right? We're not, coming every year trying to continue to change our team when we don't need to, right? I think last summer we came with everything we had. We put everything forward, and those men did a tremendous job, okay? And we ended up with the bronze, right? I think everybody in this room would have loved to have seen a gold, right? And if I was sitting with you in that moment, you'd be asking me what happened and how come we didn't win the gold, right? And so to answer that question, you have to make difficult decisions. And I think that our players, in my communication with our players, they understand that.
Oh, and regarding Jamal, who's kind of been around each of these summers, but has always had an injury or concern, and we saw this season, he had some battles in that area. So is there any update that you can provide in terms of his ability to be 100% available, start to finish?
Yeah. Well, from everything I understand, he's ready. He wants to be here, and he's going to be coming here with all his powers. And I think, this is a player that's a tremendous player. I don't think I have to tell anybody what Jamal Murray is capable of. This is the kind of guy, and pardon the expression, guys, but if you're going to go into a war, sometimes you might need a nuclear option, and this is the type of a guy that's, in the fourth quarter, he will detonate on a game, and I just don't know how you put this type of player that wants to play, that wants to be there, and not give him an opportunity to be there, especially since he's been a part of the commitment.
Physically, he's able to...
He seems fine from everything we understand. I do believe that obviously he had a long season, and so those are some things that we always got to look at as we go along. But from everything we understand, he should be fine. We'll manage his body and the body of some of the other athletes that have very long seasons. But we believe that we'll have a good plan in place to have him ready for Paris.
Some mixed feelings for you as you were watching the playoffs, kind of hoping that these guys would obviously do well personally, but then also hoping that maybe they'd have some rest beforehand.
Yeah, I plead the fifth. Plead the fifth on that.
That only works in America.
That's right, that's true.
Rowan, one more just for me anyway, but look at those last spots on the roster, 11, 12, whatever, not to number them, but how much do you weigh having guys in those spots that are critical options for Jordy situationally versus guys who have tremendous chemistry component and have history, with this program?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that a part of the continuity and cohesion discussion was just that, right? Having the people that will kind of work well together. I think one of the issues that impact that, the ability to have a team that's just really strong all the way throughout, is egos. And I've spoken to one of the best coaches all time, and talked to him about that. And one of the things he said was, "No, I need all the egos inside the room. Like, I don't need you to check your ego at the door. I need you to bring it inside." Right? And he said, "And my job is to manage those egos." Right? And he said the reason for that was because when my players go out on the floor, I want them to think that they are the best in the world and that no one can stop them. I don't want their egos to be checked at the door. I want them to bring it inside, and I believe I can handle and manage those egos. And so I trust that Jordy, from everything he's shown us, will be able to handle those egos. And I think that from what I've seen from our players, I haven't seen any issues around our players letting their egos get in the way of what our country needs to do. So I think we'll do our best to put the best possible team with the most flexibility in it that gives us the chance to compete against anything that we see. And those will make the choices, I think. And then finally, in the end, I'm sure Jordy will have some thoughts about some extra things that he thinks he might need, and we'll make our choices as a result of that.
We haven't spoken since Jordy got the Brooklyn Nets job. What does it say about him that he made the commitment to Canada even after getting that job? It's obviously a hard thing to do. And were there any complications this summer based off of that?
Yeah, good question. No, well, I think that Jordy's wanted to do this. I think he's been very consistent. I want this job. I want to do this job. I want to drive this team. It's not just this year, is what he said last summer when he sat in front of you and spoke. And I think he's just following through on his word. And thankfully, he has an organization that is going to allow him, to do that. We had great conversations with them, Sean Marks, in the group there in Brooklyn, and everything is good and kind of full steam ahead.
When you mentioned the offensive defensive difference with the Canadian organization, why do you think that is, and is there something developmentally the country, grassroots, whatever can do to change that, to develop more defensive-minded or defensive guys for the organization?
No, I think we have what we need defensively within our pool of players. I think it's for us now to pick them and pick the right group that works. It's hard for me to look at guys like Dylan Brooks and Luguentz Dort and think we don't have defense in our country. Guys that are just hoping to maul you on the court. Don't care whether they score or not. This is what we're looking for, and I think that we have some more that can do that. And so, we're looking for more out of the guys that were there last summer. Let's see how you've grown over the last year. And as the coach is looking to deploy them a little bit differently, let's see how they counteract to that, how do they react to that, right? And as well, we're bringing some other guys that have that defensive profile as well. And let's have at it and let's see what we have, right? Whoever's coming in here, guys, they have to try out for this team. I think Jordy's been very, very clear. You got to try out, right? Not giving any spots, regardless how big the name is that's coming in, that hasn't been here. They've got to try out. And so, hopefully everybody will come in healthy and they'll work as hard as they can and come to work. And guys, why should it be any other way, right? I'm sitting here. There's Olympians sitting here in front. You want to talk to him and ask him what it was like to make an Olympic team, how competitive it was to make an Olympic team. Have any idea how many people I had to climb over to get onto the Olympic team? It should not be easy. It's that competition that readies you for when you go into the actual competition, right? It's been grinding and pushing and fighting all the way up, right? And I think that some of our athletes have come to competition and shown us within this system what they can do. And I think we need to maintain a strong core that with some continuity that's shown us what they can do. But I also think, as I said, we need to grow, right, in some areas. And we'll look at that and we'll make it competitive.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rowan.
Right.